Okay, so we will get started. Welcome to this seminar hosted by Shinso Ito Center for Japanese Religions and Culture at USC, co-sponsored by three institutions: Center for International Studies, which I direct, the Korean Studies Institute, and East Asian Studies Center. My name is Saori Katada again. I'm a director of CIS. And this is such a pleasure to welcome Professor Kei Koga, who will be speaking about the role of ASEAN in Japan's free and open Indo-Pacific. This Indo-Pacific notion has been everywhere these days, and this is a great time to learn about this. Professor Kei Koga is an expert in this area. He's an assistant professor in public policy and global affairs program, as well as School of Social Sciences at Nanyang Technological University in Singapore. He has had various posts previously to be at Nanyang. He's been the visiting fellow at Center for Strategic and International Studies, or well known as CSIS. He was at Japan-US Partnership Fellow at Research Institute for Peace and Security in Tokyo. He also held a postdoctoral fellowship at the Belfour Center for Science and International Affairs at Harvard Kennedy School after his PhD, which was from the International Relations at the Fletcher School of Law and Diplomacy at Tufts University. He's the author of many articles and a couple of books. The new one that he just told me, which is coming out this September 2022 from Palgrave, is titled Managing Great Power Politics, ASEAN Institutional Strategy and South China Sea. So without further ado, I would like to give Dr. Koga a floor. But just before we do that, I would like to note that we please think about questions you would like to ask. And there is a function at the bottom of the screen called Q&A. So if you like to put the question in while Dr. Koga was speaking, please feel free to do so. Meanwhile, if you want to ask questions personally, and since we are kind of a cozy group, then we can kind of have you come out and raise your hand, which is another function you can find, again, bottom, maybe 3 down to the right of your screen at the bottom of this one. Yeah, you can raise hands, and then we can unmute you so you can appear and ask questions personally. So anyway, really exciting. We are looking forward to Dr. Koga's presentation. So I'll give you the floor to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your kind introduction, Professor Katada. And then also, I'd like to thank the Shinso Ito Center for Japanese Religion and the Culture, and also the Center for International Studies, and then the other important institutions. Thank you so much for inviting me to have this seminar. So let me share my screen right now because I have the slides. So let me check this. Okay, I hope everybody is able to see this. Okay, so my presentation here today is the title is the role of the ASEAN in Japan's free and open Indo-Pacific. So I'm going through what I actually want to talk about today's seminar. One reason why I actually chose this one, this title, and also this topic is because if we take a look at the current strategic environment in the Pacific, there is many changes, and particularly the great power competition between the United States and China is getting intense. If we take a look at the Asia policy from the Obama to Trump to the Biden administration, we will see the United States is actually committed to the Indo-Pacific or the Asia, the security and the strategic situation. And Obama, for example, was taking the Asia pivot or rebalancing strategy. And Trump was actually trying to put the China on China as the center of the U.S. strategy. And as we could actually see, the 2017 United States security strategy, national security strategy, they actually regarded or considered or labeled China as one of the revisionist states. And then the Biden administration, even though the Biden was trying, I think everybody expected Biden was trying to get the United States back to the traditional diplomacy. Then the Biden also took the firm stance on the China. We could actually see it from his interim national security strategy, and also we could actually see it in his Indo-Pacific strategy too. So what has actually changed? Basically there was new document published by the United States in the Pacific strategy. This is actually important because it is a first, I think, the official document, the publicized one from the White House. And they actually regarded Indo-Pacific as the really important strategic theater in the future. And then they actually started to commit to that. Also, there's an emerging multilateralism, as we actually see the quadrilateral. We don't actually call it quadrilateral security dialogue anymore, but then the Quad, US, Australia, India, Japan, 4 countries got together, and then they started to discuss the strategic issues in the region. And then last September, we see the new multilateralism AUKUS, and then the others. So we actually see the different dynamics that we had in the past. So this is a really important development. And then I just like to touch on this one, the Russia-Ukraine war, because some people may say that yes, I mean, today we are seeing this ongoing war, and maybe the US strategy would change. And that's possible if there's a more kind of the big event like Russia using the nuclear weapons in the Europe, etc. Maybe like this actually changed the strategic dynamics of the United States. But I believe if the current war actually settled down through the negotiations, so I think this is not going, I mean, this is a really huge impact on the international politics and also US foreign policy. But then the basic stance that the United States has right now, that is geared toward the more kind of focusing on the China's rise, then I don't think that there's going to be a big change on this. We could actually talk about this, but I assume for this presentation that we are not the Russian-Ukraine war may have some kind of strategic impact, but then it doesn't actually change in the large big ways. So I guess this is my assumption for this presentation. And then Japan is the big player in the Indo-Pacific right now, because as you may have already known, Japan is the architect of the current free and open Indo-Pacific discourse and narrative. The Abe administration launched this concept in the 2016, which I elaborate a little bit later. But then this is Japan took the leadership on this, and the United States adopted in 2017. And now everybody is talking about this. So Japan is very important. And then also it's important because of the Japan's strong ties with the United States. It is often called the foremost US ally or cornerstone of the regional strategy of the United States. So the US, Japan relations are very strong, and then Japan ensures US presence in the region. And also the politically, economically, and social, culturally, Japan is deeply connected to the East Asia. It's not only to the Northeast Asia, but then the Southeast Asia, and then the more recently the South Asia. So the Japan, even though it's often regarded as the declining power, but then we actually could see Japan is playing a important role in the Pacific from the diplomatic perspective, from diplomatic perspective, and also the security perspective. And when we look at the East Asia as well, then we actually see the institution called Association of Southeast Asian Nations, ASEAN. ASEAN has the 10 the Southeast Asian countries. I'm not going to elaborate the 10 countries, but you could actually see the map on the right bottom of the slide. Those are the countries who have which have the membership of the ASEAN. And the ASEAN is important because it has become the core of the East Asian multilateral institutions since 1990s. ASEAN created the ARF, ASEAN Regional Forum, and also the ASEAN +3, which includes the Japan, China, South Korea, and the East Asia Summit, also the ASEAN Defense Ministers Meeting, plus etc., etc. So the ASEAN actually proliferated this multilateral frameworks in East Asia, and then became the center of the regional institutions. And often we regard ASEAN's strengths as its convening power, because the ASEAN is basically the neutral player. It doesn't actually have the strong inclination to the particular great power. They have the equal kind of the fair relationship with the great powers, so that nobody is actually seeing the ASEAN as an enemy right now. So, and also the ASEAN respects for the traditional international rules and norms, such as the non-interference principle, and also the state sovereignty. And then because of that, they actually adopt the consensus decision-making process. And this is often called ASEAN way, but this is very much attractive to the those people, the countries, including the small countries like Laos and then Cambodia, and so that they could not be intimidated by the great powers in those forums. So again, the ASEAN is really, really important, and then it gets respect from the regional players, and then also it has the really strong relation with Japan. And for Japan, for ASEAN, Japan is the very interesting player, because the Japan is not the strategic or the military threat to the Southeast Asia. And then it actually has the strong tie again with the United States, has the provide the economic assistance, and then strengthen the economic cooperation with the Southeast Asian countries. And then taking relatively similar diplomatic approach in terms of the universal value, human rights, and also democracy. Japan is not actually putting the lots of the economic sanctions also when the ASEAN member states actually violate those kind of universal values or international law. So the ASEAN generally has the positive image with to the Japan. And then if you take a look at the ICS poll, that is the research institution in Singapore, and which usually take the public poll from the 2019. And then the Japan is the regarded as the most trusted major power in the Asia. So the Japan-ASEAN the relations are strong, and then they are actually cooperating really effectively. But now we are actually facing the some kind of dilemma in the because of the emergence of the in the Pacific. And Japan is currently tilting toward the United States, or the more kind of the Western or European countries. And then they are consolidating its firm posture against China. And this put the some kind of the implicit pressure, diplomatic pressure on ASEAN as well, because the ASEAN is trying to maintain its diplomatic and political neutrality And if Japan is actually moving toward the United States too much, then ASEAN might be hesitant to cooperate with the United States as much as they used to. So there was some dilemma. It's not actually going to be the, I mean, still, I think this issue is not so big issue, but I think in the future, this might be changing. So I guess this is a really important implications. This has important implications for the future of the Indo-Pacific diplomatic landscape, and also the institutional arrangement, because Japan is committed to institutionalize the Quad, so-called the multilateralism. So my question for this topic, have the very kind of simple three questions. The one is what role does the Japan expect ASEAN to play right now? If the Japan is actually tilting toward the United States or so, then what kind of role Japan wants ASEAN to play? And then also if that doesn't actually the ASEAN cannot meet the Japan's expectation, is the ASEAN's role in Japan's FOIP withering, I mean the weakening, and what is the future prospect of the Japan-ASEAN relations. And then later, I would like to kind of talk or touch on the policy implications of the current threat dynamics of the Indo-Pacific. And then just to jump in, just make it my kind of argument clear. My kind of conclusion is something like this. Japan's expectation of ASEAN in the Indo-Pacific is pretty much mixed. So Japan is not like really certain about the ASEAN's role in its FOIP, the free and open Indo-Pacific vision. On the one hand, Japan is Japan, ASEAN is still an important player, because ASEAN has been a pivotal regional constituency for supporting the existing rules-based order, international order that like Japan also support. So if Japan gets the support from the ASEAN countries, then that means the pretty big thing, because in Asia, the 10 countries, the small and medium-sized countries, they could actually support the current international order. That is again, like basically the United States and then the other leading developed countries are constructed. So then that's a good thing for the Japan. And so they want to have some kind of support. But at the same time, as I described, Japan is more kind of moving toward the United States or the European countries, and their kind of value system might not be as it's not completely supported by the ASEAN countries. So and also the ASEAN wants to stay away from the great power politics. And then if the Japan is started to get involved in the more kind of counter China diplomacy or so, ASEAN is ASEAN becomes hesitant. And then, but then that does not mean that the Japan-ASEAN relations are going away. They could actually still do the functional cooperation. But then their kind of relationship becomes more functional than the strategic, and then there might be some kind of divergences in the future. So I think the future prospect for the Indo-Pacific could be I again like to talk about this, but maybe the great power politics actually ensued in the Indo-Pacific region. ASEAN has been ASEAN could be potentially marginalized diplomatically in the Pacific region, not like Southeast Asia, but like in the Pacific region, they could be diplomatically marginalized, and then maybe ASEAN would be confined to its own kind of region that is Southeast Asia. Okay, so that's my basic argument, and then today's I'd like to go through these kind of three things, Japan and ASEAN in the Pacific, how Japan's free and open in the Pacific developed, how the ASEAN's own kind of outlook on the in the Pacific. It's not actually strategy. It's more like the diplomatic vision on the in the Pacific, but how this was created. I'd like to talk about it. And the dilemmas that the Japan and ASEAN face right now, there are three: direction of the Japan's free and open Indo-Pacific the development, and then the meanings of the ASEAN centrality, sustainability of the ASEAN unity, and then lastly, I touch on the future prospects and then policy on I said like theoretical sorry here, but I'm just more focusing on the policy implications. So now moving to the Japan's free and open Indo-Pacific, it came out in 2016. When the Abe, Prime Minister Shinzo Abe actually made a speech in the so-called TCAD, the conference, Tokyo International Conference for the cooperation development in the Africa. And then the reason why he made this speech is because there are two kind of strategic challenges that the Japan felt in the future and in the region. And then both of them are actually related to the China. One is the emergence of the Belt and Road Initiative by 2016. It has been already 3 years since the President Xi Jinping made a speech in the Indonesia and then Kazakhstan about the its vision for the connectivity in Asia. And after that, China started to invest more in the infrastructure development in the overseas countries. And China started to have more kind of the influence economically and politically in the those in the region. And if we take a look at the China's diplomacy around that time, China also created the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank. And even though today we saw the AIIB a little bit differently from like we saw in its inception in 2014, but then at that time we or everybody was feeling that China might be using the different foreign policy to gain more influence over the Asia and also the world. And the Belt and Road Initiative was so popular in the Southeast Asia as well. Actually, when I did some travel to the Malaysia and the Cambodia and other countries after the 2016 or 2017, then I was I was surprised that everybody was talking about BRI, and then they were actually saying they saw these kind of things development on TV. So they had some kind of like particular TV program on BRI. And when I talked about I mean, like there's gonna be there's also the different strategy called the Free and Open Indo-Pacific by Japan, and then I asked them like if they knew it, and then they didn't know at all. So at that time, like 2017 and 2018, nobody knew about the Indo-Pacific, but like, they knew about the BRI. So then this actually represents, or like this actually illustrates how the China's BRI became like really popular and influential in the those regions. And also when we take a look at the maritime spheres, then there's gonna be the new China's kind of assertiveness. East China Sea for Japan, Japan has been struggling with the China's increasing presence near the Senkaku Islands and also the East China Sea. And Japan actually tried to manage by increasing the Coast Guard capabilities and then the also maritime domain awareness, but those are the really concerning issue for Japan at that time. And then, as we already know, that the South China Sea became the center of the attention of international community because the China was the reclaiming the land and then the militarizing the some of the islands by installing the missiles and radars and so on and so forth. But then the most importantly, in 2016. There was the arbitration tribunal made a certain the ruling that says the Chinese 9-dash line was not the it's legally valid, but then the not many countries could immediately support for that decision, even though like they implicitly said that, but they are kind of like the first reaction was pretty divided. And then ASEAN as well. ASEAN was divided about this ruling. So these two strategic challenge came up. And then as I said, the Shinzo Abe created this, and then the objective was to maintain and strengthen the existing rules-based international order. And that was constructed by basically the United States and the European countries in the post-war period. And then the Japan enjoyed benefits out of it. So definitely the Japan wants to maintain and strengthen that the rules-based international order. And international order here means the basic kind of rules and norms, such as the rule of law and the sovereignty, no use of or threat of force, etc., etc. I mean, these are stipulated in the UN Charter already. And also the promoting the free and open market, the economic prosperity is the priority for the Japan as well. Whereas the geographical area of in the Pacific, it's still the Japan's geographical scope is pretty clear. It's encompassing the eastern the Africa to the western side of the eastern side of the Asia Pacific. So it's really broad, but then basically the Japan wants to cover or like at least be aware of what's going on during in these areas, and then they basically the Japan wants to focus on the maritime issues. So the Indian Ocean and the Pacific Ocean are the two important oceans for Japan in this concept. But then because first when the Abe made the first speech in 2016, the concept was pretty vague, and not many people actually understand what the free and open in the Pacific. And I actually went through the most of the kind of the ministry's document, but then they are actually saying different things. And so I was kind of trying to get the idea what this kind of core concept is, but there aren't not many. I mean, they discuss the older kind of the norms and the rules that they've been supported, but it's still I think it was not clear. But what I actually found out was maybe like the Japan wants the United States in this region. I mean, they want to ensure the U.S. commitment. And also they want to constrain China by the international law and rules. And they also they want to actually strengthen ties with the Australia, India, and then later ASEAN. And then as you can see, like I actually put out the conceptual map of Indo-Pacific that the Ministry of Foreign Affairs actually created. And then in 2016, they actually created this map, which is a little bit in the Pacific map was more kind of focusing on the Indian Ocean, but they actually realized the Pacific Ocean is too small for this map, so they actually expanded it. And then later they forget about they realized they forgot about the ASEAN, so they put the ASEAN in here. And then now, like they are actually moving to use the actual kind of map, and then they're showing how Japan consider in the Pacific should focus the entail. So These are the evolution of the, I mean, just kind of illustrative purpose. They are just showing the Japan's, the free and open Indo-Pacific was actually evolving over time. And then what is actually evolving? I think they are relating to many things, but I think three things stand out. As I said at first, in 2016, when they are talking about the Indo-Pacific, the ASEAN was was missing. So the people started to actually think that the ASEAN should be included, and I think the 2016 or 2017, when the Japanese embassy in the Southeast Asia tried to use this concept to show the Japan is expanding its strategic landscape. Then what they actually did was they included ASEAN by themselves, and then showing the ASEAN is the center of this Indo-Pacific strategy. But then it was not until the early 2017 or late 2017 that Japan officially included the ASEAN in its conceptual map. So that's one. And the other one, second one is the strategic focus. At the beginning, Japan said, obviously the international rules and norms are important. And then those rules and norms include democracy, democratization, democratic values, and human rights, etc. So it has something to do with the domestic, political system. But this became a little bit sensitive because most of the Southeast Asian countries are not necessarily democracy. So instead of focusing on those the domestic political norms, then they started to focus on international ones, such as rule of law, freedom of navigation, and free trade. And then lastly, the name of foreign policy doctrine, the Indo-Pacific free and open Indo-Pacific strategy. At first, they said it is the free and open Indo-Pacific strategy, but they decided to drop the term strategy because some of the ASEAN member states suggested strategy meant to be some kind of like counter China, or they didn't explicitly say that, but they said this has some kind of target state, and then ASEAN would not support it if they have the particular target to counter. So they decided to, Japan decided to drop it. And now they call the vision or concept and so and so. If we take a look at these three changes, they are actually linked to the ASEAN's consideration. So the ASEAN's input was they were to some extent reflected to the Japan's Indo-Pacific strategy. And this shows how much the Japan consider ASEAN as an important player at the time. And now the current description of the free and open Indo-Pacific in 2022, they actually say the same thing pretty much. Free and open Indo-Pacific region as the international public goods. That's important to be open, transparent, and then rules-based. And then again, the importance of the rules-based international order. But at the same time, they explicitly said that the ASEAN centrality and the unity, ASEAN is really important in this free and open Indo-Pacific the vision. And then they focus lay out the three pillars of the FOIP. That's the promotion of the establishment of rule and law. As I said, it's international rules and norms, and then also the economic prosperity and commitment for the peace and stability. And then in addition to that, they want to make it not exclusive. So they emphasize always Japan would like to cooperate with any state that share the same vision, same free and open Pacific vision. But that actually means that they don't want to, or they could not work with the countries that do not share the same vision. So I think these are some kind of the current status of the free and open Indo-Pacific vision that Japan focuses on. Objective and means the objectives remain the same, maintaining and enhancing the current rules-based international order. But then its means no power-based strategy. Japan cannot actually use the military capabilities to reach all the kind of areas that Japan suggested. But then what Japan actually tried to do is they want to try to create a coalition to support the current international order. And this is and then in that sense, the ASEAN is a really important player again. So because it's centered in the Pacific, and also the 10 member states out there, and then it has the many regional institutions. So these are the important feature of the Japan's free and open Indo-Pacific, and ASEAN is considered to be the important player here. On the other hand, the ASEAN outlook on the Indo-Pacific, the AOIP, which was created in the 2019, and this is the very first political document that the ASEAN created on the Indo-Pacific. It was actually the Indonesia's initiative, and then Indonesia considered in the Pacific was the important region for Indonesia and then Southeast Asia. And as you may know, the Foreign Minister Martin Netheragawa, he proposed the Treaty of Amity and Cooperation in the Indo-Pacific. That is it's an expanded version of the Treaty of Amity and Cooperation in Southeast Asia. He actually wanted to create this treaty to have the more kind of cooperative relationship with the countries in the Pacific. And also this has something to do with the President Jokowi. He launched at first the concept of the maritime fulcrum. And that has had the international implications, but then later on, the maritime fulcrum became more kind of domestically oriented. So right now they have different connotation, but at the beginning, Indonesia was trying to play a bigger role in the Pacific. But then the ASEAN's member states' reaction was kind of like lukewarm, because this was regarded as the Indonesia's kind of political ambition. And then the ASEAN countries didn't really enthusiastically support that kind of idea. But then because 2019, like many countries actually discussed in the Pacific, Thailand actually started to coordinate, which was the ASEAN chair. They coordinate the diplomatic relations, or like the foreign policies with the other Southeast Asian countries, and then they created the AOIP. And then again, like the question is why 2019? Why this is important in 2019? This is because, I mean, there are several reasons, but then the 3 reasons stand out. One is the Indo-Pacific became the major power strategic terminology. All the countries like United States, Japan, Australia, India, and even some European states decided to use this terminology, and then started to place their commitment to the region. And also this in the Pacific somehow had the anti-China, counter-China connotation, which the ASEAN didn't really want to see, because if the great power rivalry intensified in the Southeast Asia, the Southeast Asian country had difficult time to push back this dynamic. And also the ASEAN member states are kind of divided in terms of using the Indo-Pacific the concept, because if you use the Indo-Pacific concept, that means like you are actually kind of seen as aligning with the Western countries or United States or Japan. So their first objective to conclude the AOIP or issue the AOIP is to neutralize this divisive connotation. They don't want to actually see the anti-China, or they don't want to see the counter China the connotation. So by doing this, by using its own concept, they started to say, okay, so this is the important concept, but then it does not necessarily mean the counter China or under China. And also it wanted to have its own meaning of the Indo-Pacific, because again, like by using Indo-Pacific terminology, then many countries would see ASEAN is tilting toward the particular Western countries, the United States, Japan, etc. But then they don't want to actually see it. By using or by creating its own term, then everybody could actually use more comfortably the Indo-Pacific. So its characteristic is more response rather than initiative. Because there are many people using the Indo-Pacific the terminology, they have to use it, but they don't want to use it on in terms of the same meaning as the Western country use it. And I'm not going through this contents, but then basically what they try to say is in this AOIP, the ASEAN wants to maintain ASEAN centrality. ASEAN should be the core of the regionalism in the region, in the Pacific, and then they want to emphasize the inclusivity. So they specifically use the sentence says they want to see the Indo-Pacific region of the dialogue and cooperation instead of the rivalry. So this actually again see Indo-Pacific. They consider Indo-Pacific has the connotation of the under China or great power rivalry, and they don't want to actually see it. And by trying to neutralize this rivalry, the ASEAN emphasized the importance of the functional cooperation, such as the maritime cooperation, the connectivity, UN Sustainable Development Goals, and also the economic and other possible areas of cooperation. These are actually the areas that the ASEAN has been emphasizing on. So it doesn't actually change much, but then by re-emphasizing this important functional cooperation, they start try to mitigate the rivalry in the Pacific. And so what's going on? I mean, between the Japan's free and open in the Pacific and ASEAN's ASEAN outlook on the in Pacific, Japan is very much very supportive for AOIP. And then if you take a look at the individual principles that the ASEAN emphasize, they are pretty compatible. So they could actually easily synthesize what the principle they want to emphasize and what kind of functional cooperation they want to pursue. And then 2020, when the Japan, the ASEAN had the summit meeting, they issued the joint statement, focusing on the ASEAN-Japan cooperation on the AOIP. And then here in the document, the Japan continuously advocated for the importance of the ASEAN centrality and unity, and also they are going to cooperate on the functional cooperation in the future as well. Those are including the IUU fishing, maritime plastic debris, and also quality infrastructure, COVID-19. You can name it. There are many functional areas they could actually cooperate. But having said that, there are three dilemmas that the Japan and ASEAN faces. And then the one is the direction of the Japan's free and open Indo-Pacific development. Second one is meaning of the ASEAN centrality. And then the third one is the sustainability of the ASEAN unity. Sorry. Now for the first one, direction of the Japan's free and open Indo-Pacific development is right now, interestingly, Japan started to emphasize more on the human rights and democratization. This is particularly so after the Biden administration, because the United States now try to put the more kind of priority on the human rights and democratization. And then they touched on the issues in Hong Kong, Xinjiang, and Myanmar. And these are the things that the Japan also care about. And then they Japan care also explicitly say that they are concerned about this development. And so in terms of the value system, Japan is more kind of inclining toward the US and the European states. And also, in addition to that, the Japan supports the institutionalization of the new multilateralism, which doesn't involve the ASEAN necessarily. And then the most the important one is Quad. As you can see, I actually created the list or the so table here. At first, the Quad meeting, so-called Quad 2.0, the Quad meeting was very informal, and then no kind of the preset agendas, and then no the clear regularization of the meeting. But then over time, they started to kind of meet each other, and then they started to discuss the particular issues, including the infrastructure development, and also the maritime security, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, these agenda are kind of random at the beginning, but over time, they started to narrow it down, and then they are focused on the particular agendas. And then by the 2021, because of I think because of the emergence of the COVID-19, they started to have the meeting virtually, and that means they started to have the meeting independently. It used to have the back-to-back meeting, but then it began to have independent the meeting. And then the Biden administration set the agendas and also decided to have the working group like counter COVID-19, climate change, climate crisis, and also the other critical and emerging technologies, those kind of things. So the institutionalization without kind of formalization, because they don't have any kind of particular secretariat or the institution itself, but then I mean organization itself, but they started to have more kind of institutionalization, and then Japan is eager to support this. So they again, like the Quad represents some of the Japan's support for these developed or the big kind of democracy countries in the Pacific, and then also Japan started to have the military cooperation with them. The most recent one is the Japan-Australia reciprocal access agreement. That means the Japan and also Australia have the kind of military exchange without having the difficult administrative process. And then this could actually, we could talk about this in the Q&A, but this could have the some linkage with the AUKUS as well. And then it taken together, then this actually shows some kind of the counter-China characteristics, and which obviously like ASEAN doesn't really want to see. And then second one is the meaning of the ASEAN centrality. Always the Japan and then the other the Quad member states the advocate or emphasize the importance of the ASEAN centrality and the unity. But then the even if you take a look at the closely the official documents, the meaning is really unclear. We don't know what it means. So what like the Japan supporting ASEAN centrality, okay, but then what are they actually trying to do? There's no clear indication for that. But then the United States started to actually say a little bit about this. And then the ASEAN centrality does not necessarily mean the United States actually respect or the support ASEAN for the entire regional institutions in the Pacific also. They actually said ASEAN's process and also the other institutional process are different. And then for example, the 2021, the Kamala Harris actually made a speech in Singapore saying that the ASEAN is important for the regional security, regional architecture in the Pacific. But at the same time, we want to actually emphasize with more result-oriented groups like the Quad. And then again, in the Pacific, the strategy which was issued in February 2022, the United States wants to empower ASEAN to deliver a sustainable solution to the region's most pressing challenges. So that means the ASEAN doesn't really have the capability yet, but then the United States wants to support for the region's most pressing challenges. And then this region, I'm not sure if it's in the Pacific or the Southeast Asia, but then for the United States, there are two tracks. Then even though they emphasize ASEAN centrality, it's not everything in the Indo-Pacific. It's a kind of part of it. And then the United States should work on the different kind of the institution as well. And then Japan's posture, kind of the action, if we take the see the action of the Japan, then probably like this is more like the Japan's kind of future posture to the ASEAN centrality. So we could again like debate here in the future as well. I mean, like in the Q&A as well. On the other hand, so ASEAN is dissatisfied with this, probably, but then ASEAN is not really clear about its ASEAN centrality either, because the ASEAN centrality is defined in the ASEAN Charter, but they are saying that the ASEAN should be the primary driving force in the relation and the cooperation with its external partners in the regional architecture. But again, this regional architecture may be the only applicable to the Southeast Asia or East Asia, and not like in the Pacific, because the in the Pacific is basically like too broad. And then there are two risks that the ASEAN actually would face. The one is the diplomatic overstretch. If the ASEAN actually try to cover entire Indo-Pacific, then the ASEAN is going to lose its diplomatic resources, and then ASEAN would be less kind of effective, even its convening power, because diplomatically it's not sustainable. But if the ASEAN doesn't actually emphasize the ASEAN centrality in the Indo-Pacific, then there's going to be a risk of the diplomatic marginalization, because great power is going to dominate, or like maybe they actually think about the importance of their own diplomacy, not ASEAN. So the ASEAN also faces the dilemma, and the ASEAN is not actually clear yet about the ASEAN centrality in the Indo-Pacific as well. So these are the another dilemma. And then the third dilemma, lastly, the ASEAN unity is in the danger right now because of the external events that we face. And then we see this kind of the divergence among the ASEAN member states in the past 10 years. 2012 Scarborough Shoal incident in South China Sea, ASEAN was not able to produce the joint communique for the first time in its history. 2021 Myanmar coup, the views on the Myanmar coup were so divided, so that they were not sure how to get the Myanmar involved in the ASEAN meetings in even now, like in 2022. We are not sure who is going to be invited to the ASEAN meeting. And this Russian-Ukraine war has some implication to the ASEAN as well, because the ASEAN has the several multilateral institutions or the forums that involves the Russia, such as the East Asia Summit and the ASEAN Defense Ministers Meeting Plus. And we are not sure how ASEAN is going to invite Russia into this if the United States and other countries decided not to be with the Russia in those meetings. So ASEAN faces a very difficult situation right now, and then there are many members do not have the same opinion. So if the ASEAN is divided, then it would be easier for the great powers to conduct the wedge strategy, and then ASEAN could be easily marginalized. So just quickly the conclusion, going back to my original question, what role does Japan expect ASEAN to play? I think the best case scenario is the ASEAN moves beyond its traditional norm, like no interference or the state sovereignty, and start support the existing rules-based international order, including the liberal norms, such as the democratization and human rights, and so. But then this is unlikely because of the divergence we see in among the ASEAN member states. More kind of realistic scenario is the ASEAN remain the same, and then maybe they are facing the risk of the disunity. So the potential solution could be the accept ASEAN's diplomatic marginalization to some extent, but they continuously respect its central role in Southeast Asia and East Asia. Not like in the Indo-Pacific, but they have probably like confined the geographical scope in those original regions that the ASEAN emphasized. And also the second one is ASEAN's role in Japan's FOIP withering. Maybe or maybe not. Japan does not expect ASEAN to play a diplomatic role in the Indo-Pacific as much as it does in the Southeast Asia. But then again, Japan still respects the ASEAN's centrality in the East Asia. So depending on which geographical area we see, I think Japan's the expectation of the ASEAN is different. And then what is the future prospect of Japan-ASEAN relations? I think like it could be the more kind of confined to the functional cooperation. Like strategic one, it's important. They would talk about it, but they are not going to have the high expectation for that. So the future prospect, ASEAN remains important in the Japan's FOIP, but the geographical scope is likely confined to some extent to the Southeast Asia and East Asia. And probably Japan continue to empower Southeast Asian states, but then maybe the ASEAN itself may actually revive the concept of the ZOFAN, that is the focusing on the regional neutrality. That is the basically the kind of the insistence that the ASEAN countries doesn't want to get involved in the great power rivalry. I think the situation in the 1971 could be to some extent comparable to today's situation. Great power rivalry rising up, and then they need to have the certain kind of safe area, and then in order to ensure that safe area, maybe the concept of regional neutrality is applicable, whether or not like this is realistic. So they may actually advocate for that. And the great power politics would likely be there in the Pacific region. I think, unfortunately, I think like it would be because as long as the United States engages competitive strategy toward China, because again, the Southeast Asian countries don't want to see it, and then they don't want to get involved in it. But then if the US is getting involved in that, and then also Japan is going to support it, probably like the region could be gradually divided, not completely divided, but gradually divided. Okay, so that's all I have. Thank you very much for listening, and then that's it from me. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Koga. If you could take your slides down, then maybe people can see you a bit bigger picture. And I appreciate it even more so because it's what, 4 a.m. in Singapore time. I failed to mention that you are such a trooper to join us. I know we were hoping that you could come in person, but really keeping the time and being here at 4 a.m. would really, I'm very grateful. And you are very sharp, especially when it comes kind of in the middle of the night. So I would like everybody to please put in your Q&A questions to your Q&A function, or if you want to ask questions personally using your voice, then please raise your hand so that Jesse here, who is looking at the technical side of it, can unmute you so you can ask questions that way. So while everybody's thinking about questions to ask, and I do encourage everybody to ask questions, I would like to put 2 questions to Professor Koga. So first question is all about China, right? So the FOIP, or the Indo-Pacific, is notorious in the sense that everybody's kind of in the same bed, but have different dreams. And I think it was kind of interesting to hear that it was to put China down, US in, and have, you know, others like Australia and then India up, which is, you know, kind of, I don't know if people noticed that this was a kind of a pan on the NATO, where it's Russian out, Germany down, and US in. So, you know, in some ways, you know, the whole concept of Indo-Pacific, whatever, Quad, is not really an alliance against China necessarily, but being told it should be down probably isn't what China appreciates. So my question would be, you know, what is the China's reaction to this? How has it been responding to kind of a transition of Japan's stance and maybe ASEAN's stance, you know, vis-a-vis this Indo-Pacific notion? So that's my first question. The second question is that, you know, I mean, Japanese government loves it when ASEAN people, you know, see Japan as the most trusted nation in the region, right? Be above and, you know, beyond US, beyond Europe, and obviously beyond China. But, you know, in some ways, it's kind of interesting because ASEAN is, you know, very uncomfortable, you know, kind of putting China down, excluding China. At the same time, ASEAN, you know, one of the reasons why Japan is trusted is because there is a very significant ambivalent feeling vis-a-vis China. You know, these days, you know, China has been known, I think it was the foreign minister, known to say that, well, China is a large country and ASEAN members are all very small, and that's the fact. You know, that kind of statement belittling some of these smaller members, which wasn't the case, you know, kind of, I don't know, 10 years earlier. I wonder, you know, what is this? No, so what is the tension where, you know, for ASEAN, or the dilemma for it, to have, you know, to really need to live with it, and in some ways, you know, welcomes their initiative, but at the same time, they are very aware of the prospect of, you know, China being able to use that, you know, maybe weaponizing, you know, some of the interdependence or otherwise. So these are two questions I have, and I think some people are already putting some questions in. So please.
Right. Thank you very much for your great two questions. So yeah, they are both interesting. But then let me start with the first question. What is the Chinese reaction to the Japan's free and open Indo-Pacific? I think at first China doesn't really consider in the Pacific the kind of narrative can sustain, could be sustained to that extent. So what they actually thought about is they just kind of didn't touch on it, and then after just letting it go, then probably not many people are going to discuss it. But then after that, it was actually 2016. But then 2017, when the United States started to take the terminology in the Pacific, free and open in the Pacific, China started to think about, okay, so maybe like this kind of narrative is going to be consolidated in the future. But then still, I think it's between those U.S. allies and partners, such as Japan and Australia, India. So they didn't have to think about it. And then China actually, what I heard was China was concerned about the ASEAN's move to take the terminology in the Pacific. When they were actually discussing about the ASEAN outlook on the Indo-Pacific. This is because, again, as I said, the Indo-Pacific has the certain connotation for the counter China or anti-China, and then the Japan, the China didn't want ASEAN to use it. So, and then I think that this has been consistent, even though currently many Chinese scholars started to talk about it, but like officially, I don't think the China kind of actively used this term. So there are still there's a kind of big divide, and so just one the Chinese kind of hesitant, or like Chinese they are putting kind of implicit pressure on the ASEAN about the use of this terminology is that I I heard the ASEAN, Thailand in 2019 when it was a chair started to think about taking the issuing the ASEAN outlook on in the Pacific. Then the Thailand actually consulted with the China about the this document, and then they were actually consulting whether the contents of the AOIP should be okay with them. And then I think like there's this certain kind of consultations between them, and then the China didn't deny it. So the Thailand actually went ahead and then took the issued the AOIP. But then the because of the those kind of close consultation, Thailand expected the Chinese kind of support for the AOIP. But then the China still didn't want to use the term in the Pacific. So they said the principles that the ASEAN laid out in the new document is the are good because it's actually the principle that China supported. But they didn't actually specifically say that in the Pacific. So China has been hesitant on the use of the terminology. And then I think like this would likely continue in the future as well. So that's the kind of the reaction that we could get from the China. ASEAN's dilemma between the great power politics, and then the Professor Katada is completely right, correct. The ASEAN has the ambivalent feeling about the those kind of US and the China. At the end of the day, they have this strong relation with the both the countries. But then I think the what they actually want to do is they don't want to make it pretty explicit about those kind of great power projects. They knew that the great power projects are going on, and then the intensification of the U.S.-China rivalry, but they don't want to actually see it in Southeast Asia. So if Japan and then also the United States explicitly say, okay, so these kind of principles are important, and then this actually going against the Chinese behavior is going against these principles, and then we need to actually constrain China. If you say that, like ASEAN is not going to support it, but then you could actually say deconstructing the several norms constituting the free and open Indo-Pacific, and then the showing it the individually. Okay, so this the international law is important, and then the probably like ASEAN country would say yes, that's important. So you could actually get the support out of it. But if you actually show it as the kind of set of the international rules and norms as the free and open in the Pacific, they are going to be hesitant because they are doing the same thing, but then the China actually see free and open in the Pacific as their counter China agenda. So right now, what the Japan is trying to do is Japan is not going to emphasize the importance of the free and open in the Pacific, but then they are actually emphasizing the individual principles of the free and open in the Pacific, so that they could actually support individual principles. And then if you combine them, that's pretty much the same thing that the ASEAN is supporting a free and open in the Pacific. So I think like there's a way. This is more kind of diplomatic than the substantial. It's more like the rhetoric than the substantial. The thing, but I guess that's the kind of the way they are dealing with the Japan is dealing with ASEAN, and then ASEAN is comfortable with this type of the diplomatic actions. So the initial comment on your two questions like this. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. So those who are coming, I know everybody's staying, so I think everybody's very interested. Please do put in questions. So I have one here from Luke. I guess Luke is a guy. He wants to know. I guess Professor Koga talked about functional cooperation and things like that. And the question is, has online mis and disinformation been challenged for ASEAN unity? Or when it comes to the concept of Indo-Pacific, does it extend to internet? So are there any kind of cooperation on these fronts?
Okay, that's very interesting. I think this information with regard to ASEAN unity is not that like really large, I mean huge, because at the end of the day, not many people knows about what ASEAN is, and then I mean even in the Southeast Asia, and then they don't know like what is the kind of functionality of the ASEAN unity. Those people who know about the ASEAN are pretty much kind of considering or concerned about the international affairs or regional affairs. And they have to some extent some kind of the common understanding and knowledge. So in terms of the misinformation or disinformation about the ASEAN unity, not that much. And then even if there is, there are always the experts in Southeast Asia try to push back this kind of the misinformation and disinformation. Even though like, it's actually happening in the basically the Southeast Asian research institutions also. But then the second question is very interesting. How does the concept of free and open extend to the internet? So this is the kind of one issue that the Southeast Asia are concerned about. Not necessarily focusing on internet, but in more broader sense, it's more kind of data transfer also. There's two types or like many types of the interpretation of the data transfer and also the internet connection in the Southeast Asia. One is the free and open. Again, they try to make the those kind of data transfer as free as possible, but at the same time, they want to protect some of the kind of information, and then they don't want to actually make it entirely free, but then try to make it like the as free as possible. That's the one kind of the view, and the other view is the data that they have on the internet or the data they have in the Southeast Asia or like their own country should be protected. And they shouldn't be actually transferred to the other countries easily. So then they actually advocate for the data sovereignty also. And if that's the case, then there's going to be a conflicting view among the member states, among the countries. And then this happening in the Southeast Asia too. If you take a look at Indonesia, Indonesia is more inclined toward the kind of data sovereignty. They don't want to actually freely flow those kind of data to the other countries. But then on the other hand, the Singapore is more kind of inclined to the free and open. So there's a certain kind of the conflicting view among the ASEAN member states, and we are not sure to what extent this affects the ASEAN unity. But seemingly, in terms of the data transfer or like the internet, that's more like the ASEAN might not be the best kind of venue to talk about. Maybe like individual ASEAN member state actually going to the supporting the Japan or the Western countries, which emphasize more like free and open one. And then the other one is for more kind of China type. That is the more kind of protecting the data sovereignty also.
Yeah, great, thank you. So nobody's asking questions. I see a lot of names that I know. I hope, yeah, also Luke says thank you. So I know I would like somebody to raise hand and ask questions. Okay, so Luke is asking another question. Immigration policies. So how do immigration policies factor into ASEAN relations? Especially, well, partly given the COVID-19 environment. And is there anything like that on that topic? Is it more like bilaterally, or does it happen in group? By the way, I have another hand, so maybe if you can quickly respond, then I can go to the person who is raising hand.
Okay, so just quickly, I think the immigration policy factoring ASEAN's relationship, I don't. I think each ASEAN member state has the different immigration policy to Japan. So I can't actually say there's a one ASEAN kind of immigration policy to Japan. So individually, we should actually take a look at that. I mean, Philippines and Japan have the, I think they have the most advanced one, I guess. So that's the one thing. And then the COVID-19 strained these diplomatic ties. The COVID-19 actually constrained the diplomatic interaction among the ASEAN member states and then also the between ASEAN member states and Japan. But then they could actually talk to the online. So the basic kind of the things were okay. But then the kind of small negotiations that are usually taking place in the sideline of the conference or the meeting was actually not there. So that's the kind of the important the things that like, we need to take into account. So that's the the things that I could actually say right now.
Okay, great. So Miguel is raising his hand. Could you unmute him? Oh, there you go. Hi, Miguel.
Hello, thank you, Professor, and thank you, Professor Koga, for this very interesting talk. I would like to ask, do you see any possibility for cooperation in terms of specific projects with Japan and perhaps other Indo-Pacific powers? For example, just as Japan, Australia, New Zealand, the United States in these electrification project in Papua New Guinea, do you think that there can be some sort of space for this kind of cooperation with ASEAN between Japan and perhaps other Indo-Pacific powers in the region?
Thank you very much. So yeah, specific projects. I think there are many projects that the Japan and the ASEAN could pursue, and then right now there's some kind of the list of the specific projects that the Japan and ASEAN engage in terms of promoting the AOIP ASEAN outlook on the Indo-Pacific that I raised the four kind of areas that is the UN SDGs and also what is the economic cooperation and then the other things. So you could actually have the laundry list on that. But then if we kind of try to create the some kind of project that all the regional states can in the Pacific can join, then that would be a little bit difficult. But then the one thing probably like we could actually promote is the maybe like the less the difficult one is the counter COVID-19. And even though right now it's the COVID-19 is not that like really a big issue because the many people have the already vaccinations in the developed countries. But then in the developing countries, there are more people who actually need the vaccination too. So I guess those are the areas that the Japan and then the other countries, including China, can promote the cooperation on that. And unfortunately, right now, I think there's a certain kind of political divide even in the COVID-19 counter COVID-19 agenda, because on the one hand, the Quad and then the also Quad and what was the Quad was actually creating the working group on the counter COVID-19, and on the other hand, the ASEAN was actually trying to promote ASEAN +3 cooperation. And then there's no kind of strong linkages between Quad and the ASEAN +3, even though there are some of the membership, the members are overlapping, such as Australia and then also the Japan. But I think if the Japan and Australia play an important role in the bridging those kind of institutional linkage, then probably they could actually have the specific, the project that could cover entire Indo-Pacific region. But then again, like it gets politically difficult. So that's actually I could say here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for thanking me for questions. Anybody else have questions? If not, I will take the last spot. Okay. So since the Professor Koga has just finished a book on the South China Sea, what is the kind of the best or appropriate, effective cooperation that will be couched in the Indo-Pacific and Japan, especially with Japan, Southeast Asia, ASEAN countries on the South China Sea.
South China Sea. Okay, so yes, that's difficult, but I think thank you thank you very much for the kind of that's pretty difficult to answer, because at first there's a dilemma. On the one hand, China and in particular ASEAN member states don't want to see any kind of external involvement in the South China Sea. So there's a kind of pushback, not only China, but then also like other countries. Of course, the Chinese, the supporter for China, such as Cambodia and Laos, doesn't want to see any external intervention. And then at the same time, there are those people or like the countries who which want to get the external commitment. The Vietnam and the Philippines wants to see the US commitment and also the Japanese involvement there, and then also as well as the European involvement. So this is very difficult. What the Japan and the other countries could actually do is probably the capacity building. That's what they are actually doing. Because the Chinese military power, naval power, and the Coast Guard power, they are getting stronger and stronger, so that the Southeast Asian countries cannot deter those Chinese encroachment. And then that means China could gradually change the status quo in the South China Sea, and that actually creates the more kind of tension between the Southeast Asia or South China Sea. So maybe the developed countries in the Pacific could provide the certain capacity building, not only the military or like the naval capabilities or the Coast Guard capabilities, but also the kind of workshop on the international law, such as UNCLOS, because the understanding of the UNCLOS were not like really deep in the Southeast Asian countries. Some of the Southeast Asian countries. So creating some kind of workshop and then talking about the potential and the limits of the international law, that could actually help deepening the discussion about the South China Sea dispute. And that's one the thing. And then the other thing is obviously the Japan and then other countries in the Pacific should encourage the code of conduct that the ASEAN and China were working on. This is really tricky because there are still difficult substantial disagreement among the ASEAN member states and the China, what to be stipulated and what kind of the areas they should cover. I mean, there are many parts of the South China Sea, such as the Paracel Islands, Spratly Islands, and then the many sub-regions on that. And then code of conduct was supposed to cover entire region, but then there was again still disagreement even among the ASEAN member states which area they should cover, because the particular areas such as Paracel Islands are more kind of bilaterally oriented, including only the China and Vietnam. So in that sense, this negotiation process is going to be difficult, but right now after the 2016 South China Sea Arbitration Tribunal, they decided to proceed more intensively, and then their kind of discussion became accelerated, even though the COVID-19 actually stopped this momentum, but they are still going on, and then they are trying to issue the code of conduct in I think like probably like 1 or 2 years. I'm not sure if this is realistic. So either way, I think the Indo-Pacific countries should encourage ASEAN and China to conclude the code of conduct pretty soon, and then they could actually support the code of conduct in accordance with the international law. Because if it's actually going to be contradict with the code of international law, then there's gonna be no use. I think the South China Sea Tribunal ruling is going to be abandoned basically if you actually deviate from the international law. So I think like there should be some kind of like connections between the code of conduct and international law. So these are kind of two things that like they could actually encourage, and then these are it's really difficult still. But then I think this is the things that the external countries can do to the Southeast Asia.
Great. Well, so thank you very much. I would like everybody to join, I guess, virtually, thanking Professor Koga for this really, really informative, insightful discussion. I think everybody learned so much about Indo-Pacific and Japan and the Southeast Asia very much, and we are very grateful for that, and very grateful for that you stayed up early into the wee hours of the morning to join, kind of give us this, share us with your insight with us. So thank you very much, and thank you for all the audience for coming, and hopefully we can continue our discussion into the future.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.